part 2 of chapter 1 of Becoming Sister Wives. We're from the point of view of Cody now. I am a hopeless romantic and too easily infatuated. When I was growing up, I suffered all sorts of little heartbreaks. I had a careless dating style. I would dive into a relationship before considering my true feelings. Often I'd find myself holding a girl's hand. Then I'd look over her and think, why am I holding her hand? I don't really like her. During my 2 years in the ministry in Texas, I promised myself that I would never again kiss a woman until I knew for sure that I was in love. When I returned home from my mission and began seriously considering converting from the LDS Church to Mormon fundamentalism, my mother told me that I should take time away from girls, or at least from dating them. She knew that I needed to become less careless and discover what it was I truly wanted from a relationship and whom I truly loved. That decided it. I told myself I was done with dating carelessly. I was done chasing girls. I urged myself to be patient and to learn how to be friends with the next girl I became interested in. Mary was my experiment in friends. Mary was cute and sweet. When I met her, that I had a hard time suppressing my hopelessly romantic nature. She had a remarkable purity about her. I had a sneaking suspicion that we were soulmates. But because of the promise I had made to myself, I rejected this notion. I was determined to be Mary's friend until I knew her better and could confirm my suspicion that our destinies were intertwined. I was glad that Mary and I kept finding ourselves spending more and more time together. I was excited to be associating with members of Mary's faith. They had an intensity about religion that I found inspiring. Perhaps because their religion was somewhat countercultural and at odds with certain conventional doctrines, they took no aspect of their belief for granted. They examined their convictions carefully and enthusiastically. The members of this group were fully committed to their ideologies and discussed them at length, both debating and confirming the tenets of their religion. Every day I spent with this group seemed to turn into an impromptu revival of profound discussions of spirituality and religion that I had been missing in the LDS Church. Even though I loved my new group of friends and their congregation, I had yet determined whether I should join the faith. Nevertheless, I kept surrounding myself with people from my parents' new church. A few weeks after I told Mary that I wasn't open to dating, I invited her up to my parents' ranch in Wyoming for Thanksgiving. Mary and I were never far from each other's side during that trip. Naturally, people began to ask if we were dating. It was pretty clear that we liked each other a whole lot more than just friends. I often caught Mary making eyes at me. I didn't have to ask her how she felt about me. It was written all over her face. I couldn't stop winking back at her from time to time. It was no longer possible for me to deny that I had strong feelings for Mary. She was sweet and innocent and a wonderful listener. She validated my existence. We became inseparable. At the same time, I thought this wasn't fair to Mary or me. I didn't want to lead her on, but I didn't want to make a mistake either. Thanksgiving weekend ended. I had planned to stay with my parents for a few days, so Mary drove back to Utah with some of our friends. This was the first time in weeks that we had been separated for so long. I thought about her constantly while we were apart. The house was finally quiet, which is remarkable in my large family. All the guests had returned home and my younger siblings were in bed. I was sitting at my mom's kitchen table, eating ice cream with a fork. That is some fucking serial killer shit. The kitchen was dark, but light from the living room spilled onto the floor. Again, I thought it wasn't fair to either of us to pretend we were just friends. We were obviously much more than that. I didn't want to drag this out and hurt Mary or myself in the process. I needed God to answer 2 questions. Should I join the church I was investigating, and should Mary and I get married? After all, I couldn't marry her without converting, but I wanted to convert because of a spiritual conviction, not because of my love for Mary. I finished my bowl of ice cream, and I decided to fast and pray until I knew with deep conviction what path I should follow. I went to the bunkhouse on my parents' property, which is where I slept. I got into bed and began my fast. After 2 days of fasting, I decided to drive back down to Utah. Mary's parents had invited me to stay in a guest room at their home. I hadn't eaten since Mary left Wyoming, and I was shocked by how great I felt. I was strong and energetic, as if I were being sustained by a greater power throughout my fast. I felt as if this was remarkable strength that persisted without food or water was a part of my answer. When I got to the guest bedroom, I was overcome with an overwhelming feeling of peace greater than anything I'd experienced before. That feeling, that unbelievable sense of tranquility and calm, was exactly what I'd been searching for. I had made my decision and I was at peace with it. That very day, I told Mary's dad that I had decided to join his faith, he made the arrangements quickly. The next weekend I was baptized, and I committed myself to the principle of celestial plural marriage and to God the Almighty. Somehow, in the middle of all this, I remembered to ask Mary for permission to court his daughter. I guess my conversation really cast me in a favorable light because he granted it immediately. After the baptism, Mary and I went to Temple Square outside the LDS Temple in Salt Lake City to meet up with friends. I had my answer about both my faith and about Mary. I knew that I wanted to marry her, and I just had a feeling that she would say yes if I asked. But as usual, I was moving too quickly and following my romantic impulses. We hadn't even started courting, but I was already kneeling at the altar. That night in Temple Square, I was wearing an old trench coat from my mission. I turned to Mary and said, "Your hands look cold." Then I took one of them in mine and I put our hands into the pocket of my coat. I didn't want to attract anyone's notice, but I wanted to hold her hand. I had finally become comfortable with our romance because now I knew this was the woman I was going to marry. So then it goes back to Mary. Even though Cody had told me that he didn't want to date anyone, I still hoped that he would change his mind. When he finally approached my father about wanting to court me, I was thrilled. Cody and I had a wonderful courtship. The fact that we had spent so much time as friends and knew each other so well allowed us to develop a sweet romantic relationship based upon friendship and mutual respect. Cody and I decided to spend Christmas with his family at their ranch in Wyoming. It had been 3 years since he had spent Christmas there, and I was looking forward to getting to know his family a little better. We had been courting for a month, but we had begun hanging out for longer than that. It was impossible for us to hide the depth of our feelings for each other. Everyone knew we were in love. At dinner a few days before Christmas Eve, his family kept nagging us about our relationship. They wanted to know, when are you guys going to get married? They asked me over and over again. Finally, I shot back with, well, he hasn't asked me yet, more to tease Cody than anything else, and maybe to light a little fire under him. That night after dinner, when we were sitting in the bunkhouse, Cody asked in a nervous but cute way, "I'm thinking maybe we ought to get married, if you want to." It was an awkward moment, not at all the romantic proposal girls dream of. Although I did want to marry him, I was hoping for a real proposal, and there was something else holding me back. I wanted to take some time for introspection to know that from God if this was the right choice for me. During this time that I was taking to check my feelings and validate them with God, Cody and I went ring shopping. We found a ring we both really liked, but we kept looking just to be sure. Cody knew this was the ring for us, though, so while I thought we were still shopping, he secretly had his sister buy it for him. On Christmas Eve, Cody officially asked me to marry him. He was really nervous, he sounded shy and embarrassed, and not at all like his usual self when he asked me to marry him this time. He handed me the jewelry box without opening it or taking the ring out, almost as if he was delivering a package. I thought it was sweet how nervous and unpracticed he was. "You're supposed to take the ring out and present it to me, not just hand me the box," I told him. But I was just giving him a hard time. I was thrilled that Cody had asked me to be his wife. I was completely in love with him. I knew he was my soulmate and that we were destined for each other. We had a strong foundation of friendship to build on. I was so excited to finally be engaged to him and looked forward to becoming his wife. In true Cody Brown fashion, he had once again jumped way ahead of himself. He'd asked me to marry him before he received consent from my father. The next day, Cody called my dad. The two of them had developed a deep friendship based on faith, spirituality, and understanding, so my dad gave us permission at once. Go to part 3. I don't want these to be over 10 minutes. Go to part 3. Part 3.